Well, we're taking a look here at Gonalo, I suppose contemporary of Anselm, who read Anselm's argument and is criticizing it. At least one thing we can get out of it is that he restates the argument in the beginning, and that might be of some help in interpretation of what the argument actually is. But it's more important to see or no, it's just as important than to see what his actual problems with the argument are. Well, let's think about this proposal that Anselm has made. That is, that if we can conceive of this idea of a being greater than which nothing can be conceived, it must exist in reality. Because we can also, if we conceive of the idea and say that, well, it only exists in the mind and not in reality, we can also conceive of it as both existing in the mind and reality, and that would be greater. So it contradicts our original idea. Well, first of all, we're very familiar with the idea that we can think of all sorts of things, but that does not mean that they exist. It's a sort of a basic idea of reality and our relation with reality. It's quite possible to think of something, to use our imaginations, but that it would be a form of madness to think that whatever we imagine must exist. So that obviously applies to this idea of the being than which nothing greater can be conceived. It is merely an idea, and we're very used to ideas just being ideas. So there must be something special, unique about this idea. That is, so that its existence in reality would be demanded logically by its existence as an idea. Again, that distinction or that lack of logical consequence that whatever we imagine must also exist. That is, again, a very basic thing, again, in our understanding of our relation to our minds, the relation of our minds to reality. So there must be something special about this idea from Anselm's point of view. Why don't we just go right to Gonalo's example of the island. He says here, for example, it is said that somewhere in the ocean is an island, which because of the difficulty, or rather the impossibility of discovering what does not exist, is called the lost island. And they say that this island has an inestimable wealth of all manner of riches and delicacies in greater abundance than is told of the islands of the blessed, and that having no owner or inhabitant is more excellent than all other countries which are inhabited by mankind in the abundance with which it is stored. Now, if someone should tell me that there is such an island, I should easily answer his words, in which there is no difficulty. But suppose that he went on to say, as if by logical inference, you can no longer doubt that this island, which is more excellent than all lands, exists somewhere, since you have no doubt that it is in your understanding. And since it is more excellent not to be in the understanding alone, but to exist both in the understanding and reality, for this reason it must exist. For if it does not exist, any land which really exists will be more excellent than it, and so the island, already understood by you to be more excellent, will not be more excellent. If a man should try to prove to me by such reasoning that this island truly exists, and that its existence should no longer be doubted, either I should believe that he was jesting, or I know not which I ought to regard as the greater fool, myself, supposing that I should allow this proof, or him, if he should suppose that he had established with any certainty the existence of this island. For he ought to show first that the hypothetical excellence of the island exists as a real and indubitable fact, and in no wise as any unreal object, or anyone whose existence is uncertain in my understanding. So I think it's a very interesting example. Can you conceive of an island that is greater, more excellent, better than any other place? Well, let's just say that you can. Can you exist of it? Can you conceive of this as not existing? That is, can you imagine it, but also imagine that it doesn't exist? Well, you certainly can. is I think Gonolo is saying you certainly can. If someone describes you an island greater, more wonderful, more excellent than any other island or any other place, you seemingly can understand what they say, but you can also hold it in your mind that this island does not exist without contradicting yourself, even though it would seem perhaps to lead to the same contradiction that Anselm believes with his idea. That is, if you can conceive of it as not existing, then you conceive of it as lacking in some excellence. That is, you can conceive of an island that's greater because you can conceive of another island that actually exists. Does it involve you in a contradiction? Well, I think Gonolo is saying no. That couldn't possibly be right because because I can conceive of this greatest of all islands, it justifies my grasp of the world that I must also conceive of it as existing. So clearly there's a difficulty here. And there is, Anselm did respond to Gonolo, but we won't go that far. Anselm has proposed that this very idea, the very nature of this idea of a being greater than which no other can be conceived, logically demands that it actually exists in reality, that it cannot only exist in the mind. Certainly, Gonolo has given a similar example. We can conceive of, seemingly, an island greater than all other islands, but certainly that doesn't imply that it actually exists. So the question is that a good example? That is the example of the greatest of all islands really similar enough to the general concept of the being greater than which nothing can be conceived so that it is open to the same criticism?